Welcome to College Recruiter. For the next half hour, we will be discussing recruitment for cybersecurity, specifically how to attract hard-to-hire talent or diverse recent college grads to your organization's cybersecurity roles. At College Recruiter, we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career, so we have teamed up with some experts in cybersecurity recruitment, recruitment marketing, and government recruiting to help you move beyond your current strategies. I'm Anna Peters, content manager with College Recruiter, and I'm very excited to introduce my panelists today. Pete, we'll start with you. Pete Bugnatto is a strategic talent sourcing specialist at Lockheed Martin. He focuses particularly on relationship building, as well as networking with cleared cybersecurity professionals. Pete is skilled in building a pipeline of both passive and active cybersecurity prospects, and he also knows how to discover the best talent in the market for opportunities that are hard to fill. Thanks for being here, Pete.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Melissa Bauer is managing partner of the Georgetown firm, a women-owned small business that provides evidence-based solutions to business challenges. At the Georgetown firm, Melissa enjoys the opportunity to design recruitment campaigns for Fortune 500 and high-profile government agencies. And there she supports challenging recruitment efforts, deploying a team of marketing, outreach, and recruiting consultants who tailor messaging, branding, and collateral to attract desired candidates. Prior to founding the Georgetown firm, Melissa held executive positions at some of the nation's largest management consulting and accounting firms. So thank you for being here, Melissa.
Thank you for having me, Anna.
Stephen Rothberg is president and founder of College Recruiter, and he describes himself as a fully recovered lawyer, and 27 years now after founding what became College Recruiter, he serves as its visionary, helping to lead company strategy and business development efforts. So thank you, Stephen. It's nice to see you.
And thank you for putting up with me, Anna.
I don't really have a choice. So, and I also will welcome our panelist who is yet to join us, who was delayed, and we hope to see him very shortly. Jamey McNamara is Deputy Chief Human Capital Officer at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Jamey assists in leading the strategic management of the agency's human capital programs and policies in areas including recruitment, staffing, retention, position management and classification, compensation and benefits, leadership and employee development, performance management, total rewards, labor relations, and work-life programs. He's got a lot to do. So we will welcome him when he manages to join us. So why don't we get started? I want to start in a place where recruiters are planning a recruitment campaign, particularly to target hard to hire or hard to find applicants and diverse applicants. In order to plan that recruitment campaign, recruiters really need a strong grasp of who their candidates really are and how they fit in their agency's mission. So I want to speak to several different things that are important for recruiters to keep in mind at this planning stage. And Pete, why don't we start with you? Can you speak to the importance of understanding what it is that makes those applicants so hard to hire? What do we mean by that? And what are some examples in cybersecurity?
Sure. So right now there's probably more of a demand for people with cybersecurity skills than there ever was before, mainly because cybersecurity is now built in rather than bolted on like it used to be, and there's just a lot more to secure. So before we even used the term cybersecurity, it was more like InfoSec, SIGINT, and information assurance, and now everything needs to be secured. So why it's so important is we're starting to see a crossover between what would traditionally be cybersecurity people and software engineers and systems engineers and network and other types. It really involves every skill set when you start thinking about the system. So what's important is knowing how to put together a message that's going to resonate with who you're trying to attract, because it's not one size fits all. So what might be appealing to people who are malware engineers and pen testers might not be the same message that's going to resonate with, say, information assurance, certification and accreditation people, risk management framework people, and the like.
Melissa, would you add anything to that?
typically when we go after hard to find candidates, we step back and take a look at what the entity has already been doing, how they've defined their candidate pool, and then we do a data assessment where we'll survey and validate what they believe their candidate pool is to be. The reason that's important is recently we've just had another instance, we have several of them, where they assumed that they were looking at a candidate pool of a range that fell within the millennial pool. And there are characteristics when we go after millennials that we look at to try to attract them, because we understand from the data that it resonates, generally speaking, with that pool. And what we found was that while that was their applicant pool 2 years ago, it isn't today. It was Gen Z today. And that Gen Z pool has a very different impression and reaction to advertisement and what's important to them in a particular position. And with that, we'll tailor to the specific audiences.
So we will get deeper into Gen Z. I definitely want to pull on that thread. I was hoping you could speak, Melissa, a little bit about candidate personas. Do you help your clients build candidate personas? Do they have candidate personas, and how does that help them?
We can go into a wide depth. We'll look at things like psychometric analysis, candidate generalities specific to the types of personality. There are different views in terms of personality tests, and they're all meant to create a tailored or a specific trait that will resonate with them. So it varies. In some cases, it's, all right, we just want a software engineer who's capable of understanding this form of code and is able to do penetration testing, or is able to do just coding. Typically, what we do, what are the attributes and traits that you have found them to possess? We'll then validate that working with HR and in some cases division and program managers. And then we'll compare those traits to the pool of applicants and where we may find that in some cases your software engineering majors aren't the right applicant pool, that an alternative find major may bring you a different success ratio.
So, Pete, I bet I want to get into your experience too with using candidate personas, and then can you speak to also maybe some surprising places where you have found people to fit those personas where you didn't think you might?
Sure. And we have the added level of the security clearance requirement on top of all the other challenges that everyone faces with the different flavors of cybersecurity professionals. I definitely will talk to you about places that maybe you wouldn't think of to find these types of people. So in many cases, more often than not, these people have to have certain certifications like Security Plus, Network Plus, CISSP, that are relative to cybersecurity. So a lot of times when someone receives a certification, if you start thinking about, well, what do we use in our everyday life? So in the past, it used to be stuff like Flickr. Now it's more, there's other websites like Instagram. People actually will post their certifications on these types of sites, and you can go there and see that. And if someone has this certification, then that could be someone you can then target through other social networks. If you can't reach out to them via Instagram, on Flickr, there used to be free Flickr mail, you could reach them, but you could always probably find them on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter and then reach out to them that way.
How much are you prioritizing, or where does it fall when, in the in light of candidate personas, but also just the initial sourcing, softer skills? Or are you looking for candidates that only have the hard skills first?
I would say in my case, it's more the hard skills first. They have to have certain types of skills, and it's hard to do Boolean keyword searches on the soft skills.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really work. So, having for candidates, usually I advise them, if they don't have it, to have technical competency areas on their resumes that talk about everything they've ever touched, any programming languages, operating systems, databases, tools, and because that's what we're really looking for. We're building our keyword searches off of those, and then once that delivers a pool of candidates, then we can do the deeper dive into what they've actually done.
Let's get into a little bit of diversity recruiting in light of cybersecurity. I guess I'll toss this to really any of the panelists. Any of you can speak to this. The importance of understanding the role of retention, especially for diverse talent, and how does equity play into the equation?
When you say equity, Anna, can you clarify or expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So in a culture of an inclusive culture, particularly, and being transparent about diversity and inclusion issues.
Okay. Well, I can speak from the perspective of where we advise our clients and what we see candidates, where they resonate. The difference in messaging matters. So if you're looking for a diverse pool, one pool that we find that we have a lot of clients looking for is women in general. And they'd like to bring them particularly into the STEM areas, which would include cybersecurity. There are terms that are typical in different job postings that turn off women. Best of the best is something that what happens with, and this is all speaking in general terms, so the mean, if you will, or even the median. Women will self-select out rather than apply and be rejected. And so when they see terms like best of the best, they may not even apply. Whereas if they see we're looking for creative, collaborative environments, that becomes attractive. Imaginative is another one that becomes attractive, whereas hierarchical is something that may turn off someone. And studies have shown that a woman can look down a job posting, and if they don't qualify or meet the criteria that's listed at 95% or more, they won't apply. Whereas a man may look at that, and if they meet the criteria of 70% or 60%, they'll go ahead and apply. And what we do is we work with our clients to help them change the postings so that the messaging is attractive and inclusive. Now, with respect to equity, it's so important, and it's important from a diversity standpoint in any area that you're looking for. Your imagery needs to match that. If you're going out and you're looking for Latino men, and all of your pictures are Caucasian men, you're not going to resonate with an applicant who can then see their face and themselves there.
Mm-hmm. And that point is important. To the distinguishing equity from equality is one way to understand it, because equality might be the same job posting for all candidates, but equity really is about who do you want to bring in? Is it a goal to diversify your cybersecurity roles? Then you might have to tailor, or you will have to tailor your advertising and your messaging to each audience. That's more equitable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can, if it's okay, I can.
Yes, please do.
I can build on what Melissa has said, and also a lot of the stuff that Pete added earlier. By the way, Pete, a member of my family is working for you. You probably don't even know it. He's in a lovely town in the southwest, and so you can kind of cross off a few options there, and you probably know what he's doing. But anyway, okay. and he loves it. He was a recent grad and went through security clearance, and I'll tell you what, I was amazed at how well Lockheed laid out the sort of the whole onboarding process. This is what's going to happen and when, and that's something that that I think that all candidates, not just diverse candidates, really want to see. They especially these younger adults, generally college students, recent grads, they don't know what to expect. And the more that employers can communicate with them, I think the more inclusive that's going to be. Some of the students that go to the elite schools and the career service offices are incredibly well funded. They're getting that kind of, let's call it hand-holding or communication, where if you're broadening your candidate pool, and I'm not just talking about Lockheed, but all organizations, you're reaching into a group of students who may not have that. They may be the first generation to go to college and they have no idea how to apply online or what a security clearance even is. And it seems like you guys have really thought that through. Anna and I were at a conference that College Recruiter hosted in December that was at the Intuit headquarters in basically suburban San Francisco in the South Bay area. And one of the things that was talked about there was broadening the candidate pool beyond just sort of the stereotypical four-year colleges and universities. And somebody asked the question, I think, and it was like, what is the #1 school in the country? I don't remember if they were talking specifically cybersecurity or all types of computer science, and a whole bunch of hands went up around the room and nobody got it right. And it was DeVry University. And then the conversation sort of shifted not just to the quantity, but also the quality. And I think that was a real eye-opener for both you and me, how much the employers in that room, skewed to Fortune 1000 companies, have come to see productivity as the goal, not minimizing cost per hire. And so they're looking at their data and seeing that people who are with them for 5-10 years tend to come more from the DeVrys and less from the MITs. And that's something that I think as employers want to improve productivity and diversity inclusion is part of that, then a strategy that a lot of employers are, I think, really embracing is going beyond that, 12 core schools that we've always gone to, and therefore, come hell or high water, we always will go to. I'm very encouraged by that.
Especially in light of diversity, when TA teams move away and broaden their funnel from those top 12 elite schools, and they recruit from the DeVrys and the let's say less traditional schools, their talent pools should be more diverse.
Right, and as a University of Minnesota alum, and you're going there too, as long as they don't go to University of Wisconsin, they're in good shape.
Yeah, all good recruits from the U of L. So Stephen, I want to keep you talking because you've been working on, or you've been doing some work on Gen Z, and Melissa kind of started this conversation about how marketing to Gen Z is, surprise, actually very different from marketing to millennials. And if recruiters haven't seen this yet or picked up on this, it is time. So can you speak to the cynicism that we're finding in Gen Z, or if that's not the term you would use, how would you describe and advise, especially when it comes to roles around cyber engineering and cybersecurity, how to attract Gen Z?
Sure, no sweat. So there are different definitions. Maybe I'll start there with what is Gen Z. Wikipedia places the oldest of them as having a birth year of 2000. So they're basically just starting to enter the workforce. The definition that I prefer to use is the oldest of them have a birth year of 1999. And the reason I like to do that is because then I can tease my youngest daughter that she's a Gen Z and her brothers are millennials. But that's neither here nor there. The Gen Z candidates are very, very, very different than the oldest millennials. The oldest millennials are in their mid to late 30s. And as a result, probably most of them, they own homes, they own cars, they've got loan payments for both. They have generally young kids, or they're sort of around the corner for that. And you compare that to a typical 17-year-old, that's like a completely different world. That's the world of his or her parents, much more so. Now, a younger millennial that's, say, 20 is, of course, going to have a lot in common with an older member of Gen Z that's 17. Gen Z is the first generation to truly be digital natives. They do not remember a time when the internet wasn't at their fingertips always. Some of them will remember maybe their parents getting smartphones, but most of them that are like 12, 13, 14 years old, they don't remember a time when their parents didn't have smartphones, where they weren't in the backseat of the car with the iPad as they were on a road trip. It is just, it's second nature to them. The internet is not a place. We used to talk about going online. The internet now is everywhere. It's like air. And
I still say go online.
I remember using dial-up. I remember a party line at my parents' cabin. So that's it creates a very different outlook. And so when employers are looking at sort of very traditional physical recruiting practices, a career fair, a going on campus, if they don't have videos on YouTube and they're only on their website, and they kind of sort of are partitioning, that doesn't speak well to Gen Z. Gen Z wants that information. They want it now, and they want it where they want it. For the life of me, I cannot understand why employers invest so much money in great recruiting videos and then don't upload them for free to YouTube. And believe me, I don't get a commission from YouTube, but it's just like they should be right there. So Gen Z is also, as I think we've seen from some of the school shootings, like the one in Parkland, this is the first generation to grow up thinking that that's normal. This is the first generation to grow up when our country's been at war for their entire life. They think that's normal. This is a generation that started to come of age in 2008, 2009, when their parents, their neighbors, whatever, lost jobs and were foreclosed upon. And so they are much more into security than older millennials are. They are much more likely to want to take a job with a Fortune 1000 company than a startup. So, that certainly speaks well to the Lockheed Martins of the world, that maybe 5 years ago, maybe you guys were pulling out your hair about, how do we compete with these itty bitty tech startups in San Francisco? The shoe or the pendulum is swinging the other way.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're definitely adjusting a lot of our recruitment marketing strategies and our candidate engagement strategies when it comes to that. Most recently with the introduction of a lot more video, whether that's multimedia email campaigns that involve video and links and articles and images, whether it's video messaging rather than sending regular emails. And we've most recently started with video job descriptions. We're really trying to make things, I guess, popular to not just Gen Z and millennials, but to everyone. And that's really the key to it all is what are people looking at and what do they want to see? Because if you're not doing video, then you're competing. You're way behind the curve with those who already are, and so your competition's ahead of you.
Yeah, a line that we use sometimes with our customers is that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000 pictures. And isn't that the same whether you're 18 or 28 or 38 or 68? Wouldn't you rather learn about a workplace environment by seeing it and walking through it and basically talking to the hiring manager? You're going to work for her for the next 3 years. Wouldn't it be great to basically talk to her?
So, Stephen, I think that's a great point. One of the things that we've been seeing in terms of the data and the research and results is that Gen Z really focuses on 5 words and a united graphic, whereas the millennials are looking for more trending. If it's an interesting topic, If you're resonating with Star Wars or something that is of interest to them, then they will follow it. Gen Z tends to be a bit more pragmatic. Touching on what you mentioned with respect to security, Gen Z is looking for the 401ks, the long-term pensions. They matter because Gen Z is looking at the generation was defined by the financial crisis, just like millennials are defined by being able to answer the question, where were you 9/11? Gen Z specifically looks for 10 different jobs, but staying at one company to do those 10 different jobs. Whereas a millennial might give you a couple years and feel pretty good about that long-term commitment.
Sure.
I love me my Gen Z.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long they stick. You know, we don't know quite yet how long they will stick around with an employer because they're just about to enter the workforce. But you're right. We know that they're a little bit, they are a lot more career focused, and that security is important to them, job security and benefits. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, one thing I'll say that could be a challenge for groups out there who want to start doing new things when it comes to trying to recruit cybersecurity entry level or experienced professionals, that has to directly do with video. I know that one of the things you're going to have to do is you're really going to have to get everyone in your cybersecurity groups involved in part of the program, because they don't necessarily want to hear from me, a recruiter, but if you're using subject matter experts from your company who are cybersecurity people, that's a message from them is going to go over a lot more powerful than a message from a recruiter. And I know the challenge is, well, cybersecurity people won't click on that link or do this or do that. And that's valid, but we're seeing that they actually will. They will open that video message. It's just part of our DNA, right? We're human. We want to see that cool video.
Click happy.
Yes.
I can add something quick too, is that, going back to that broadening that candidate pool, it's not just about going to a lot of different schools. It's also looking at a lot of different majors. So there are students with a liberal arts degree who are awesome developers. There are students that never went to college, and in their spare time in high school, rather than playing football, they're building apps with friends. So we do see some organizations that will say, well, we're looking for cybersecurity specialists. How many people do you have in your database with a cybersecurity major? And it's like 43. I mean, it's just not a popular major. But anybody with a computer science degree, anybody with an information technology degree, anybody who has experience building apps where people have to be adding their contact information, they have cybersecurity experience. It may not be enough, it may not be of the right type, but use some assessments for that.
And to just expand on that, I think by recruiting people who are on the edges of your specialization and training them to learn exactly what they need, the hard skills that they need, you may be increasing the chance that you've got somebody who is more adaptable than that very targeted specialist. Mm-hmm. And that will serve you as your organization changes.
Yep. And then she's going to stay with you for 10 years rather than 2.
Exactly. There you go. And in addition, it's that loyalty to those that have invested in them. And that does make a big difference.
Well, we could clearly keep this conversation going, and we might. We might bring it back. We could welcome any of our panelists back anytime if they'll join us. But for now, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you to everyone who is joining us. Again, I'll just shout out to Pete Bugnatto from Lockheed Martin, and anyone listening who wants to get in touch with Pete. You can reach him at peter.a.bugnatto, which is BUGNATTO at lmco.com.
Great. Thank you,
Pete.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Melissa Bauer, and you can reach her at mbauer, which is BAUR, at gtownfirm.com. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
And Stephen Rothberg can be reached at steven@collegerecruiter.com. If anybody wants to learn anything about entry-level recruitment or hockey. Thank you all.
Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Anna.
Thank you,
Have
Eddie.
a great day.
Bye-bye.